closed, so I'm going to go ahead and call the February 27th Environmental Advisory Board special meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. This month is Invasive Species Month, so that's a topic we have covered in the past. So as we approach spring, promote your native species. Okay, so the minutes. You all may have noticed that they're in a more streamlined format. It's less like who said what, and I'm assuming that'll be their format going forward. So if there's anything in the course of our discussion, any important points that you would like the minutes to reflect, please make sure to note that so those are included in the minutes. The other thing about the minutes is that we were provided a Word version, and then there was a PDF version with the agenda on the website. They were not equivalent, and it's unclear what caused the difference, so we're going to hold off on voting on those because some of you may have reviewed the Word version or the PDF version, so we are going to hold on doing that. Next item is announcements from staff.
I have a couple of announcements. First of all, I'd like to introduce Nora Skinner. She's our new Environmental Programs Coordinator. We're very excited to have her, and I'm just going to read a brief bio. Nora was born and raised in Stokes County, North Carolina, and in 2020 she earned a Bachelor of Science in Marine Science from NC State. For the past 3 years, she has lived on the Mississippi Gulf Coast in Biloxi, where she completed her master's in conservation education at Mississippi State University. During this time, she also worked as the environmental education coordinator for the university's Coastal Extension Program, leading outreach efforts for her lab group. So,
Welcome.
We're glad you're here.
and eventually she'll be sitting in this seat. My other announcement is just to the board members. I've sent you an email to your town email account, but after starting tomorrow, the town is going to start enabling multi-factor authentication for all town emails, including advisory boards. Well, ours are already done, but finishing it for the advisory boards. And so once enabled, the next time you try to log into your town email, you'll be prompted to download and set up the Microsoft Authenticator app on your device so that you can access your Microsoft Office 365 account. And I've provided in that email email addresses of IT staff who can assist you if you need it. I didn't have your personal email addresses to share this with you. So if you have any questions or can't access it and the help information, just reach out to me and I'll pass that along.
Is there an option to have a text sent to you rather than download the Authenticator app?
I cannot, that's above my IT knowledge. It's possible, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So make sure everybody looks at that email. Okay. So here we go. Rezoning cases. Case 25CZ02, Jordan Lutheran Church.
Good evening. I am Pastor Mike Marker. I serve at Jordan Lutheran Church. So we are here for our Environmental Advisory Board meeting, as you well know, through a case for a conditional rezoning. So the congregation purchased property that was zoned rural residential. It was classified on the land use map as medium density residential. But that does not allow us to actually function as a church with some changes from when we purchased to the way zoning happens now. So we had two options as a church. One was get a special permit to continue as a church on that site to build. The other was to change to planned commercial, which is a zoning in which we could actually function as a church and gather in that space. And rather than get it by special use, we decided to go at it by right. And it was kind of two different ways, and one would require an attorney and the other, you get me. So we chose the you get me version. Okay.
Continue.
Oh, this, I wasn't sure if you were pulling something up, Amanda. So as we come to you this evening, we are in the middle of design. We have some things set, not everything is set. So I will answer everything as I know it today. And I will let you know where, if there's a question you have that we don't have the answer, because we're tweaking some things on road, we're tweaking some things on how things are sloped. So I will just open the floor to you.
I'm curious. I don't recall seeing any environmental conditions that y'all were agreeing to commit to.
So the one that we did agree to commit to at the very last end of the conditions is to begin the construction with solar conduit included. It was one that was set there. So that is one that we have offered at this time in the conditional zoning case that we have. So that is one that we have set before you at present. So it was on our additional attached at the very end. It is listed in the version that you likely have as number 7.
It's not in this chart, it's in the actual list of zoning conditions.
Okay.
So,
Can you go through the plan with us a little bit? It looked like there were a number of commercial uses proposed.
You bet, yeah. So, that's an awesome question. So what we ended up doing was we are zoning as church or place of worship, but the question was if we're going to go through the rezoning, what would things that the church might do in the next 20, 30, 40 years? So the plan is really just to be a church, to gather and sit there. But as much as I do love these planning meetings, I hope that we just go through it one time. And that once we get rezoned, that we could use that for the future, for wherever we might go. So those are listed as things that we might see as a possibility wherever there is one where there is a special use permit. Town staff was real helpful to make sure we know we would have to go back through. We'd have to go through more meetings for any special use permit. Those are things that would require additional steps, but it was one where if we're going for planned commercial, we would set there. So what are our main purposes? Gather and worship, have classes, the opportunity to care for people during the week. So could that be drop-in daycare or others? We have no specific plan at present to be a full-time daycare. Instead, we just realize those are things that churches many times do, and we'd love to do that with some of our space. So the town staff, again, has been very good. We had some where they listed and said, I think you need this, but you don't. You can already do that in your current zoning, so you could strike that. So some of these we added, just realizing what might we want into the future. Do I think that we have to become a park active or passive? No, but I'd love to have a park, and we'd love to think that we could be a park for anyone that wants it. So do realize that the attorney you see before you is not an attorney. It's just me. And I've told Amanda and the rest of the staff, they've been great. I said, we're just walking through it. And the mayor, I did ask him, I said, Mayor Gilbert, do you think that we can get through this? And he goes, do it. I think you can do this. So if you're willing to ask me questions, I'll answer anything I can. But if you have other questions, I will certainly dive in further to them. But some of the other pieces when it comes to bookstore, hey, a church could perhaps have something like that in a small section. What we don't want to do is see ourselves 10 years from now needing to come back. If someone goes, hey, you're selling these books or something else, what's happening? That's the intent. So we are not looking to become a small mini mall.
Can you go over the other commercial uses with us that were listed?
And you want me to walk right through all of them? Is that what you would like?
Please.
All right. So nursing or convalescent facility, that would be something in the future. If you could have individual families, if some other place were set up to actually have housing for some families that could be set there. That is not in our current plan, but it was something for future use. Assembly hall, nonprofit, for-profit. The intent there is that people could use whatever sanctuary or gathering space we have, and we have no question if we were to rent it or use it for someone else outside. Churches can't actually welcome all those groups if they don't have the zoning to do that. It can become just a question, hence we wanted to get that. Daycare facility, same thing, no long-term setting. This has come out from the town staff. They've raised some questions about what our plan is or capacity. Our plan is we would love to care for kids. More likely, it's 6 that's listed there. Drop-in or short-term daycare is the more likely reality. I have retirees who would love to care for families. People who have meetings, things that pop up, that if they knew they could come drop the kids off there and have it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we would love to offer that. In a town where lots of things require parents to go different ways. I have a meeting later this evening, and a parent told me today, hey, I can't make it because my husband's got a meeting, so I can't come to that meeting, but we'll do this. Those types of ways to do short-term is why it's there. Communication tower, there's 4 listings. Communication tower commercial, communication tower constructed stealth, communication tower camouflage stealth, communication tower public safety. We just wanted to have them in case there's ever a need that someone wants it in the future. We'd love to talk to someone if that's something that's beneficial, not only to the church, but to them. That will require a whole nother set of meetings. We know it, but if we don't put it in now, I can guarantee you we probably won't look at it ever in the future. That's why they're being put in. We have not been contacted by anyone. There is no one who has addressed at this time about it. It was in planned commercial, and we said, hey, let's see if we can leave that in there. Same wireless support structure, wireless communication facility, same thing. Those are just pieces where if a church could have an additional income stream, to be very honest with you, as fellow citizens that pay bills, I would not be opposed if it's mutually beneficial, and certainly we take into the understanding we have neighbors. We'll have neighbors, as there certainly are 370 apartments coming in next to us, to be aware of those. Youth or day camp, I think that one's rather self-explanatory. Just that'd be something we'd love to do, and probably could already be included under what we do as church. But if we ever had an outside group come in, the question might be, well, are they actually you or using an outside group? Well, if we had the zoning to allow it, it would clear some of those matters up. Bookstore I mentioned, health, fitness center, or spa. We have no plan in our present place to do so, but I'm aware of many colleagues who in congregations have small places where there might be aerobics or some other class that would take place. And if it's not directed by someone but a third party, the question could be raised, is this the church or is this an outside group setting there? The zoning would address some of those questions. Personal services. This really is if you have offices or we ever have spare offices. I also know of many congregations across the country where at some point in the future, towns change, things change, you have open space. Could we use the space and allow someone else to have that? That would be the intent there. Studio for art, same piece, but also in that way, we are a creative people and would love to share that. So that was the intent behind, in that case, the 20 uses that are listed on the case that's before you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, most certainly.
Is there a building on this property? I'm sorry.
There is not at present. So the buildings that were on there were actually demolished about 6 weeks ago. So all existing structures have been raised. So
Square feet do you expect the church will be?
right now it'll probably be between 8,000 to 12,000 square feet.
And how many parking spaces associated with it?
That will all depend on how big the 8,000 to 12,000 square feet is. And I'm not trying to be crass. We are in the midst of discovering that things are very, very, very expensive to build at the present. So I would say the plan is looking anywhere from 250 people in attendance. It could be pushing up to 300. So the parking, I think, sits somewhere in the 90 to 110 parking spots. But then the stormwater will all be able to manage that, and that's all set with our civil. So that's the general plan at present, but how we handle it, if you know that area behind the Beaver Creek Shopping Complex, it's got some really aggressive grading things. So we are embracing our inner grading.
So that stormwater is going to be discharging into Beaver Creek and then getting to the other side of 540 through that DOT culvert, the big.
I can't address it goes through the culvert. I can share it will move. The stormwater is planned in what would be the southwest corner, or actually northwest corner to southwest corner, right where that cursor is going. The stormwater will pass through there and it will discharge through what is Army Corps of Engineers. Believe it or not, that is a portion of Jordan Lake. It is managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, so we have been in touch with them as well. There's a small place of navigable waters in the southwest corner of that property.
You mean you have riparian buffers on it?
It would actually all be in what we consider RCA, so stuff that we're holding back, so all of that would be set there, but that has all been delineated and set through processes that we've gone through in some previous plans that when the apartment developers came in, it seemed appropriate to try to align as the town desired to get a plan that would move through that spoke to the community in a better way. So the church heard that desire and took a pause and said, let's look at things anew.
Okay, so could you talk a little bit more about the RCA bit? Like you sort of have an idea of where it's going to go on the property. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so the RCA would be planned in the southwest corner. We were in touch with the town and working with them that at this point, we are going to seek to get RCA that will carry along all of Beaver Creek Commons Drive. There is a slope and drainage easement that is along that boundary of Beaver Creek Commons Drive that was established by the town years ago prior to the church's purchase. That slope and drainage easement was heavily planted, so we are intending at this point that would be held as RCA along the northern boundary that is behind the shopping complex where the future Chapel Ridge North Road extension will go in. Due to some things that have happened in the last month, that will now be heavily replanted and is being replanted as RCA according to Article 8, 1.2. So that replanting there will also, the plan is to be dedicated as RCA. That will go in the rezoning case separate from here as we approach the town council to see if they would receive that RCA replanted as RCA, since that would require a town council action for that to be received, since it is being removed, but there was grading that needed to happen with some changes, or we'll just say adjustments to the way that road was being built, that the congregation was approached if we would have a dialogue with that developer. That dialogue took place and arrangements were made so that the grading would resolve some questions that were on that case, and that resulted in some heavy plantings according to the town's requirements for RCA. So that would take RCA in the lower southwest along the western and northern slopes, and then the possibility for some others that may need to be worked in other places. And that's the piece of the grading as it comes to our eastern boundary. There are two access points that are coming in to the case. So the 370 apartments that are coming in through High Street Residential, they are bringing two access points that will access on the future Chapel Ridge north extension. And as those happen along that way on the eastern boundary, there'll be two access points. So just the grading there and how that looks. When I say that's our grading fund, that's where we're trying to capture that slope and trying not to have too many retaining walls.
Okay, so on the southwest corner,
Yep.
it's gonna be RCA.
Yep.
And those trees that are there, those have been cut or they're gonna remain?
No, so basically, if you look at what you're seeing right now on the screen, you see what used to be a barn roof, but from where it says Jordan Lutheran Church, from Jordan Lutheran Church to the top of your screen, that is largely now just denuded. There are a handful of trees, but there is very little is left. As you go to the southwest corner, all that is retained and is still there.
Okay.
All that original growth would still be retained and held as RCA.
Okay.
The reason for the trees in the northern section being removed, again, they had been intended to be kept, but due to the requests or the conversation that the church was invited to participate in, those trees were removed to address another matter with the road's construction.
Okay, and that's where it's gonna be replanted?
That is where the heavy replanting will go, correct.
Okay, and do you have a planting plan in place, or?
We do have a plan. That plan is already on the adjoining case that is there. We just handed it to TRC on Tuesday. So TRC just got it, but it is already approved through the town of Apex for the adjoining development.
Okay.
So that heavy planting, according to the town's codes, was already approved and set to go. That developer was waiting on a sheet of paper that we signed today and mailed off to them to allow for what is a temporary construction easement. They had a temporary one, they needed additional footage because of the challenge or the opportunity for us to talk presented itself.
Do you know what the overall percentage of RCA is gonna be for this project?
I mean, the intent is that the RCA will just meet what the UDO asks us to do. That is our goal.
This area requires 20%.
25, 20?
Yes.
Okay.
And there are riparian buffers that are on this property or not?
To the best of my knowledge, the ones that are there would be down in that corner that's set there. There is a stream that runs along the western boundary that's on the bottom of that slope and drainage easement.
Okay,
But most of those, to my knowledge of the previous plans and iterations, are captured in the RCA, and any buffers, our civil engineer will address those and make sure that they are handled properly.
okay, well, I'd like to go ahead and suggest a couple conditions to be added to the one that you have provided. And the first one is no clearing or land disturbance shall be permitted within the riparian buffer except the minimum necessary to install sewer infrastructure and SCM outlets. It's that whole one.
Which goal is that one for
Let's
my own?
Number 3,
Thank you.
see. Yeah,
under the non-residential section.
Yep.
right.
Page 5. Thank you.
Also, would this be an area in the riparian system where 100-year would be useful? Yeah, I know you say not too low in the system, but is this high enough?
I haven't looked at it, you can always make that, see if it's feasible, make that comment.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and make that recommendation that, it's for the 100-year storm event.
It would be goal 1.
Goal 1, thank
Hey.
you. Yeah, I should have put the numbers with these. My apologies for that.
Just for clarity, the zoning where we are, we checked with the town, the requirement is 10 years in that place. It is not 25. There was a question as to where we were based on it. If we were in the 25 area, we are not. We were in the 1 and the 10. I certainly warmly receive and will consider what you said, but just so that the advisory board is aware, that area is actually a 1 and a 10, not the 25. Again, we'll consider it. I'm sharing in our own understanding of what we're looking at.
Yeah, there is a lot of pervious surface up at the top of this watershed, and it sounds like most of your property is going to be impervious. There's not a whole lot of pervious, rather. And it is coming downstream to it looks like a pretty just narrow area. So you can always, this is just a suggestion.
No. Again, warmly received. I will pass it to our civil.
The UDO basically calls for 10-year slot. The
Correct.
vast majority of developers, I can't say vast, but a large number of the developers, percentage-wise, commit to the 25 today. Because the 25-year storm today is what the 10-year storm was 15 years ago.
I will gladly pass it to our civil that is the desire.
In terms of increased size of the surface, it's 20%. Something like that. It's not huge. You think you're going from 10 to 25, but the percentage or the total area of the pond is not that much.
Okay, you all think 25 is more appropriate than 100? We can,
Well, I'd love to see the 100.
okay, so we can.
Let's ask for 100 and
Okay.
we'll settle for 25.
Okay, okay. Also, the project shall ensure that 75% of the landscaping shall be native species, and the landscaping shall be coordinated with and approved by the planning department. Also, no invasive species.
Yeah, help me out just on the goal there, just so we can mark it.
10B,
Thank you.
and you said 75%?
Yes.
75%.
And just, one more, and again, I'm sorry, I forgot to get the number. No invasive species shall be permitted, and no single species of tree or shrubs shall constitute more than 20% of the plant material.
Okay,
That
that's
would be
10.3B.
Yes, thank you. And those are all the ones that I would like to recommend.
For my own clarity, and I know we'll get notes from it, and that is certainly fine. On your stormwater, is the request from the board then the 25 or the 100, just for clarity?
It's 100.
Under.
I would also like on grasses that are planted, they be warm season grasses, drought tolerant, and I can't find where that is right now.
Do you have that number?
I'm looking for
Oh,
it.
sorry.
9B, but I don't know which section I'm in.
It is 11.1C.
Okay, it's 11, okay, in the non-residential.
Oh, 11.3C.
Oh,
Yes, 11.3C,
Yes, that's it,
yep.
11.3C.
All right,
Can I add the solar request?
absolutely.
Okay.
what is the solar request? You got me.
I appreciate your pre-configuring it. What I'd like to see is, and this is really small, a minimum of 2 kilowatt system per 1,000 square feet. And from the numbers you gave me for the church size, you're talking 16 to 24 kilowatts, which is kind of the size that you put on a house, a little bit larger. So there's not a lot. And the reason I really like to see it on churches because it's an example to people, all your parishioners. When they see it, when people see solar on houses and stuff, they actually start thinking that might be a good thing. And Apex has the very best net metering program, so you will come out quite well.
It's a good long-term investment.
It's a good long-term investment, you bet. And with the Inflation Reduction Act, if it holds, I know.
You'll be
I hear
glad
that
to have
too.
solar.
There's some pretty but even without it, it still
Yeah, certainly. We would consider it. I know some in our construction group within the congregation, just we would need to explore more, only because as a nonprofit to begin with, I'm not sure how those rebates quite function because of just.
Neither do I at this point.
Right.
It's the federal government we're dealing with.
No, right. I understand that. I would love to see such a system as well, but they are not without cost. The reason we wanted to put it in, I have members who are already using systems on their houses. It is a passion some in the congregation have. So it is put there because people, even on our committee in the congregation, say, hey, if we could, let's take a look. So some of it is building the roof structure to handle the weight of the system. So that's something we're working with the architects.
We'll be able to handle if it's a new structure, I guarantee you. I mean, that's designed in.
And the request was for a 2 kilowatt system?
2 kilowatts per 1,000 square feet of building.
It's goal 18A.
Thank you.
All right, any further? Okay. Is there a motion to,
I will so move
okay,
to support the suggested conditions.
okay.
Sorry, we didn't say anything about EV charging. Is that something we would
I
talk
think the
about?
town may have some requirements on that.
All right, so
I
that's
think
probably in there.
this would be exempt, right?
Right, I was just gonna check,
Oh.
rather than rely on my memory, I don't believe it's required for places of worship, but I can,
Okay.
if you give me 20 seconds, I can verify that. It is not required for places of worship.
Did you want to suggest?
You want to suggest it, or?
I'm good.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Any further discussion?
Have we got a second?
We have not gotten a second.
I'll second.
John, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time
Oh,
this
thank you.
evening. Okay, next up we have 24 CZ 11 Altera Heights.
Good evening. Matthew Carpenter with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, here this evening on behalf of Wood Partners. Wood Partners is the developer of this project. It's another rezoning case. We're calling it the Altera Heights PUD, and that name is Wood Partners Altera product, which is a very specific multifamily product line, which I'll touch on more in a moment. Let's see if I can get to the next slide here. There it goes. So the site is at the corner of Wimberley Road and Jinx. It's three parcels that total about 13.5 acres. You can see that the other corners of this intersection have been developed. The Westford project is to the south of us, which was a large mixed-use project with multifamily, townhomes, and some future commercial uses along the highway there. To the left of our site on the screen, you can see the Apex Cary water plant. And so that's adjacent on one side of the majority of our shared property line. And then on the other side of Wimberley Road, you can see the preserve at White Oak Creek, which was a single-family subdivision, and then the Retreat mixed-use project right across the street, which has some commercial uses along the road, and then I believe townhomes behind it. So this is really the last corner of this intersection to get entitled. And the land use map designation is mixed use here. It calls for commercial services and office. And so we did look into, different developers have looked at this site and looked into doing commercial uses here. There are challenges with that, one of which is the lack of frontage on Jinx Road. You can see here, Jinx Road is the main road that the property has frontage on. Wimberley has a lot fewer trips. And so for commercial, they really want high visibility on Jinx Road to be able to lease the space. And the majority of our frontage is taken up by that sliver there that's actually owned by the town of Apex. And so that's one hurdle for doing commercial development here. The other is that there's a lot of commercial entitlement on 64. And so, the thinking from retail brokers that we've talked to is that commercial really wants to locate on 64 where there are the most trips. And so with that in mind, we discussed what is appropriate here. And Wood Partners came with a sort of unique pitch. It's a multifamily project, so we're proposing 300 units. What makes it different than typical multifamily projects is that this entire project is what Wood Partners refers to as an attainable housing project. And so it's marketed and leased to people in the workforce housing range. And what's unique about that is Wood Partners is obviously a private developer. They're not an affordable housing developer, and so they're not doing this through any government financing. They're really targeting that middle market, and so they do it by having a very efficient site plan and architectural drawings that they build in other areas of North Carolina and the country. So they try to keep costs down to keep rents down. And so what they found is there's really a gap in that market because there's a lot of affordable housing on one end where developers like DHIC do projects with advantageous government financing. And then there are a lot of luxury complexes on the other end because they're easier for developers to make money because there's a lot more margin there to make up for unforeseen cost. And so that's the Altera product that Wood Partners has. They've done it in other cities, and so they're trying to add it here to help meet that demand from the middle market in Apex. We do have an affordable housing commitment. So again, the entire project is meant to be sort of middle income marketed and leased, but we have set aside 9% as income restricted affordable units. And we have a third of those at 80% AMI, a third at 100% AMI, and then a third at 110% AMI. And so we're trying to target different income bands there, to help provide additional housing for people like teachers, town employees and other employees who right now, a lot of them have to drive into Apex for work. And so that's the general goal. And I say that because I know we're environmentally focused here, but with every case, we discuss what are the what policies are important here, and it's everything has a trade-off. And so here the focus is really on affordable housing and delivering a product where rents meet that middle market. And so with that in mind, we're happy to hear your recommendations tonight and evaluate those. We did go ahead and include these 6 conditions, which you've seen in other cases. The sign at the stormwater pond to reduce pet waste, a minimum of 60% of the landscaping will be native species, signage adjacent to wooded or natural areas, pet waste stations, a limit on the no single species or shrub shall constitute more than 20%. And then finally, the project shall use full cutoff LED fixtures with a maximum color temperature of 3000 K. I think that's a little bit warmer of a color temperature than the UDO, which is why we added it. And so with that, we're happy to hear your recommendations and answer any questions.
I'm thinking we need a pet station number that's equal to the number of buildings that y'all are going to have on there. I'm not suggesting they be at each building. I'm just
right.
Leave that up to y'all where to place them, but I think we need at least one
So John,
pet station equivalent.
We
to
can
the
word
building.
it per building if that helps.
the project we looked at the last meeting I think it was the last meeting that was also apartments, I think we settled on 2 per building with the flexibility to place them in an appropriate location.
Yeah, but those were
also, I think, apartments as well.
they were.
How many buildings are you intending?
We don't know for sure yet because we haven't designed the entire site plan. I think probably 3 or 4 is what I've been told so far.
With 300 units about total.
Right. Yep. 300 maximum.
So like 3 pet stations. Well, not
Yeah,
everybody's going to have a dog.
dog.
And I'm assuming the developer is going to allow people to have pets?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be a bad sell point.
Yeah.
If we had two before, I was thinking there was a larger number of units in each building there.
Okay, okay.
But I may be wrong.
No, I think you're right. There was a lot more units in that building.
We can word it per
was
so many
specific to
units,
the
if
number
that
of
would be
units.
helpful.
Yeah, 2 per 100 units. So that would be 6. Something like that.
Yeah.
It's good. I think you'll need more than 2.
Right.
Yeah, I'm willing to go with two
2, okay.
two per
2 per 100
building.
units.
Yeah.
2 per 100 units. Yeah, that'll work.
I would like to recommend that 75% of the landscaping be native.
So is that 84A? In the residential section?
No, this is
This
in the,
would be,
Non-res.
this would be non-residential
Yeah.
apartments.
Okay.
That's how the form was set up. It confuses me every time.
I know.
And I'm still, we're working on it.
Yeah,
it's,
And
let me,
this location will be required to have EV charging.
That's right.
Yes.
Yep.
I think it would. I think it's goal 8.1A.
That's the existing tree canopy.
Right.
It's 10.1B
Yeah.
is the native species.
thank you. This is why we need unique numbers. How much RCA is this going to?
25% is a UDO requirement, and we're not asking for any modification from that. So.
Okay, and it's west of 540 is 25?
Yes.
Okay, and are you gonna be mass grading?
Most likely, yes.
So is that,
The mass grading rule only applies
Single.
for additional RCA, only applies for single
okay,
family.
okay,
Because you have to mass grade for buildings,
right,
apartments and parking and.
okay.
What type of buffer is along Wimberley? Is that,
I believe it's a 30-foot type B buffer. It's hard to see on the project on there. Let me look on my plan here.
Spell it out.
Yes.
you know, for residential type things, you don't need to have people driving by looking. I can see an E-buffer when you have a commercial building where you're trying to sell something, but you're not trying to sell anything. And it troubles me all the time that we end up with an E-buffer, which is a telephone pole.
It's a 20-foot type B.
It's okay, 20-foot type E, thank you. A telephone pole every 50 feet. I'd rather see that as a B buffer as a minimum. It's,
That's what you said, right?
It's B.
B.
It's a,
I
that's
thought
what.
you said E.
No, we're 20-foot type B
All right,
along Wimberley Road.
all right.
Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable. I'd go minimum type B. I personally like type A, but, you know, I looked at the type B buffer out here on Ambergate. Maybe it'll be type B 20 years after I die. It just seems like it would be better to go for an A because maybe it'll fill in quicker. I was really disappointed. I tried to get A buffer there and the planning department pushed back for some reason. And we ended up with a B buffer, and I ride my bike by there, and every time I go by there, I have a problem shaking my head no. It just doesn't work.
And what stormwater, is the stormwater requirement for this property?
Right now, I believe it's just the 10-year storm, and we're happy to evaluate another recommendation. Part of the challenge with this site and laying out the stormwater pond is that we discovered that there are unsuitable soils on site that were brought in from 540 to fill an old pond, and so we're trying to work around those for the building locations. And so we've got to be very careful about our stormwater pond layout, parking. It's much tighter than the site would appear if you just see it from the aerial. So
Okay, is that what that green was in the lower, you had a previous slide?
no, the green is a stream actually. I think the unsuitable soils are up here.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
so it's going to take some careful site planning.
Okay, and so are there buffers on that stream?
I believe so, yes, which is one reason it's shown as conceptual RCA here.
Okay. Let's see, I would like to make the suggestion about no clearing in the riparian buffers. That's, non-residential goal 3. Yeah, interestingly, if you go through the aerial photo progression on the county's website, you can
see
see
it.
when the pond went in, when they filled it in.
Right.
Okay. Any other suggestions?
I'll throw my solar for what it's worth. Full recognition that you can't do solar for the individual units, but what I'd like to see is a solar PV system of adequate size to accommodate the projected electrical energy usage for the common area.
Okay.
Can you repeat that wording, please, so I can type it up?
You're challenging me.
To accommodate,
Okay, I'd like to see a solar PV system of adequate size to accommodate the electrical energy usage for the common areas. I know it's kind of different, but I think it's the only thing you can get in on an apartment, the way the world is set up today.
And is there gonna be a clubhouse or something of that nature?
There may be.
Okay.
There will at least be
And that's
common
a good
areas
point.
on the ground floor, but I don't know if it will be a separate building or not.
Is there gonna
That would
a
be
pool?
still be common usage.
Yeah, is there gonna be like a pool?
Don't know.
Okay,
I don't think there'll be a pool in this one.
Well, they have other I believe other Altera projects that do have a pool. Yeah, but and these will be, the goal is for these to be elevator served units too. So
It's gonna be 4 stories.
yes, that's why. Well, right now it is. We have to discuss the height with staff, as you know, along Wimberley. But the goal is for it to be 4 stories to allow it to be elevator served.
Which to me makes it much that more important that the buffer be the size of trees that take the edge off of these things.
and you mentioned, sort of mixed use across the street and in other areas. Is there going to be like a multi-use path or a sidewalk or some way for people to not use their car to get to those?
So there will be sidewalk along our frontage. I'm assuming, well, part of the TIA is showing a signal eventually at the intersection, and so there would be a pedestrian crossing there, I would imagine. I don't know what the specific plans are across the street, but I do know it's some sort of commercial. Amanda may know better than I do.
It's zoned for commercial, and there's proposed side path on the opposite side of Wimberley, so that means there'd be sidewalk on this side of Wimberley.
Okay,
And I think I'd like to throw in 2 things. No invasive species be permitted, it's goal 10.3B.
We did include that one, so
Oh,
I mean,
okay, okay.
I guess you could put it in the recommendation.
No, that's right, it's in there. Then 11.3C, plant only warm season grasses.
and then I think we agree that the 300K LED full cutoff, that's a good one. You like that one? Okay,
Yes.
That's number 23.
okay,
2000, yeah.
okay. Any further comments or questions?
I was just gonna ask if you were making part of your recommendation what the applicant has already offered,
Oh, yeah, we're accepting.
or accept, well, it needs to be like part of your,
Yes, we will incorporate those.
Incorporate.
I will make
but-
a motion to incorporate your prior commitments and add the suggestions that we have made this evening.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right. And now on to our third rezoning case, 24 CZ 23 Greenway Waste Expansion.
I wasn't following closely, Amanda, the tricks you learned today on how, there we
just-
go, that
there you
works.
go.
I was following closely enough, apparently. Where's my little, there we go. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant Greenway Waste Solutions. This one's a little bit different than cases you typically see, and it's a little bit different than cases I typically work on, especially as part of a zoning process. Just a little bit of background: Greenway currently operates an existing landfill on site that is located south of 540 between Viridia Parkway and Highway 55. This is a planned expansion of that site. And so the site plan may be a little bit tough to read, but essentially what you see in yellow here is the existing landfill, again, just south of 540. And this area that you see over here is the proposed expansion of that landfill. One of the applicants in this case is RXR. They're the owners of Viridia. They're partnering on this to essentially there's a natural divide between what RXR is working on to the west and then this expansion site to the east. So it's a little bit different because it's expansion of a landfill. I recognize there's not a whole lot that's environmentally friendly about the expansion of a landfill. With that said, this is part and parcel to a partnership that Greenway has with the town for their composting program. So right now they're kind of running out of room for composting. So the planned expansion is, and this has been a conversation that's been going on for an extended period of time with the folks at the town related to expanding the ability to provide composting services. So the specific utility behind this expansion relates to their composting program. Further, and making this a little bit unique, we have to go through a rezoning process, a special use permit process, a site plan process, and then there's also the state regulatory framework associated with how you get to approve landfills in the first instance, and they treat this as essentially, it's an amendment to an existing approval, but it's a new application. I say all that to say, I recognize we don't have any commitments as of right now with respect to the typical things we would see in Environmental Advisory Board recommendations. That's not ruling out the possibility we could do things, but we have a fairly robust regulatory framework that we're going to be dealing with as we make our way through the process. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of heads up. It's not a reflection of Greenway's reluctance to embrace possible recommendations from EAB. It's just a reflection of the fact that they've got a pretty significant regulatory hurdle to clear before they'll be able to do anything with the site. But I did want you to know that to the extent that the expansion of a landfill might not be the most appetizing use from an environmental standpoint, the composting side of the equation, I think, softens the blow at least just a little bit. So with that, happy to answer any questions that you all may have. But again, it's a fairly straightforward application related to an existing use and the expansion of that use.
Is the whole operation composting?
No, the entire operation, you mean with respect to the expansion?
No, the whole operation. Is the other part of the operation is not
No, they do C&D as well, construction and demolition debris, but they don't do any natural waste. No, there's no household waste that is provided here. It's just C&D as well as compost.
Is this crossing a stream? It looks to me like it might be.
It is, yeah, and so there's a regulatory framework around that associated with the distance that it can be to the stream, and so the buffers that are related to a landfill actually from a state regulatory standpoint are greater than the typical riparian buffers would be in terms of where the areas of the landfill can exist. But yeah, there's that. You're perceptive. You've seen some of these before,
I
Mr.
was
Jensen.
concerned about how you bridge across there.
Yeah, so the plan is there's a road that comes off of Old Smithfield in this location here and then turns north, and it's tough to read on this plan, but essentially the existing road follows around the landfill here, and then it's going to cross in this location here. So the access is going to be, and as you know, they're going to have to provide their crossing as perpendicular as they can in order to satisfy state regulations on that front as well.
Is part of the need for the additional landfill the building at Viridia?
No, I mean, it's not directly tied to it. I certainly don't want to suggest that. I mean, it's tied, again, they have a C&D operation, they have a composting operation. It's really just a recognition of the continued growth in this area and the ability to provide convenient access for those types of things. So it's related, but it's not directly related.
Besides the town, do they compost for other jurisdictions?
No.
Just, this is for the town, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's an expansion of a program that they've been working with the town on for an extended period of time. The town's not an applicant.
What do they do with the compost when they get done? Does it get sold to the market, or?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm happy to follow up with the board and get an answer to that question from my client. Yeah, I don't know.
So the area where the compost facility is going to be, is that already treed or has that been cleared?
No, it's currently a good portion of it is treed, although a portion of it has been cleared previously. But the buffers that otherwise apply to the use of this site will exist. The area that's been treed on the site is on the portion that is currently owned and operated by Greenway, but there is going to be additional clearing on the sites that are owned by RXR as that facility expands south into those areas.
So we're cutting trees to make a composting facility. Okay.
Would you like that to be on the record? Would you like that to be in the minutes?
Yeah, perhaps, yes. So I saw something in the comments about this, about a shared RCA in this area.
No,
Okay.
I don't recall that at least.
Okay, and
I
I'm
seem to
seeing
recall
on
that,
the development map, there's like overlapping rezonings that have happened in this area, like, so which supersedes? Like on the development map, when you click on these properties, there's all kinds of polygons.
There's a lot of overlapping because RXR's properties that Jason was referring to has a development plan that's in review, not a rezoning.
Okay,
And there may be some overlapping previous zoning lines, like from the existing Viridia zoning, but what's applicable is the map that was in your packet or in your folder of information. That's the boundaries of the rezoning, and that's what Jason is showing here.
Correct. So the current boundaries between the existing industrial boundaries and the existing sustainable development district boundaries, those are changing as part of this process. And so everything you see kind of in color east of this location here, so this is going to be zoned industrial, and then this is going to be zoned SD as part of the Viridia development.
okay, so the comment I saw in the stuff that we received from the town, that the area proposed to be included in the landfill is currently dedicated as RCA for Viridia as part of the BB1 pump station plans.
So they'll have to, RCA can be owned by more than one property owner. It would not count toward the RCA requirement for the landfill, so you can't double dip.
Okay,
And we're not asking for an exception to the rules associated with what the town standard is for RCA.
okay, okay.
Otherwise, the BB1 or the site plan reference would have to be amended to move the RCA elsewhere.
Okay, so there's no RCA that's going to be like impacted as a
We
result.
will not allow area approved as RCA to be cleared.
Okay, okay.
I had that same question, so thank you.
So, do y'all have any suggestions?
What type of trees are gonna be removed? Is it mainly pine trees or?
It's a combination, but it's mostly pine trees in that location.
Not much can be said about this.
All right.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense to cut trees down to make a composting facility,
Yeah,
but
they're
if
pine
this
trees.
is, but they are pine, okay, yeah, they are pine trees, right.
I would say I find it interesting that it's driven in part by the town sending stuff out there, because if I recall, John, you suggested to the town staff that they might set up their own composting arena, which may not be very much in comparison to this one, but I don't think anything was ever done about that.
No, I don't think so.
It was like off into the, no,
It was on that property down near where
On
the
Eva-
proposed
Eva
lots
Perry,
are,
yeah, where maybe that needs to be brought to the attention of the town. And I'm not trying to take business away from these folks, but at the same time,
Town staff has,
There's a town
has actively
responsibility.
investigated that. It hasn't just been
Okay.
into the ether. It has been like diligently pursued and finding land that's large enough in an area where it's appropriate, you know, that the town owns or can acquire. It's,
right.
you know, just, it's complicated.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't get cheaper.
Exactly.
How long do you think it'll take to make a decision?
That is not my department, so I cannot speak to that. But I have been involved in conversations. That's why I know it has been diligently pursued. That's Public Works Department primarily that would be leading that effort.
Okay, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
It's not, we got nothing to approve. We got
Yeah,
nothing.
we don't have anything to
We
approve.
have no
there
I'm
yet.
not
conditions.
sure.
We have no
I think
conditions.
there have been, I thought there was there one? Or was I just working on the last one? No.
No conditions.
Not aware of
I
any
think we're locked into
recommendations.
Just,
all the other requirements.
Okay,
Yeah, it's an unusual one. I recognize.
motion for no conditions,
Second.
further discussion?
I would rather not phrase it as motion for no conditions.
Okay.
Because that sounds like approval, and I don't actually hear approval from anyone here.
Correct.
So I think it's just a no comment situation,
Okay, motion for no comment?
which is equal, but sounds different in the record.
Why don't we make it formal? We have no I move that we have no recommendations for this rezoning request.
Second.
Second?
Well, that's just what we
That's,
didn't want to do.
yeah. You can move for that. I'm not gonna vote for it though. But you can move for it. It's okay.
My only concern, obviously the trees, but the crossing of the stream, which is a state requirement, which supersedes, I guess, what anything we would say.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. Is there a second to that motion or?
What was the motion again exactly? That we have no comment. Well, we have no comment.
We
Let's
have
face it.
no
I will
recommendation.
second that motion.
No
Right.
recommendation for additional conditions.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
All right,
recommendation for no,
I second it to get this thing
Okay.
moving.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 2, 3,
I'm abstaining.
okay, abstaining? I will,
Actually, I think you have a duty to vote. It's state law,
I'm not allowed to abstain?
not unless you have a conflict of interest.
Okay, I will vote against.
okay, so
good for you.
Sean, yes, Bess, I'm gonna vote against, cause I agree with that. And you? So Katie's against, and Julie? 4,
I seconded it, I guess I have.
yeah, so the motion passes.
No comment.
Okay, all right,
Thank you all very much.
But that's the law.
And even tacitly, I wouldn't wanna, right? It's, it reflects different in the record.
Okay.
Right, it doesn't reflect
Gotcha.
any differently in what he takes away, right? But it does
Just how
reflect
it's-
differently in the record.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so next thing, Earth Fest, so,
Okay.
yes.
What day is it again?
It is April 26th from 12 to 4 p.m. So heard from Injiri. She's willing to help with EarthFest. She had a great suggestion, since we are down 2 people from last year, and our topic from last year, which was reduction in waste, was really well received. That we would just go ahead and do that again instead of trying to develop new material to talk about. What do you all think about that? Same as last year? Opinions either way?
Last year, we handed out those flower seeds and everything, and I'm really
Right.
concerned. I never went over there to find out, to get some, to see if they even germinate anymore.
Right,
I
I
hate to
know.
give stuff
And
out
we
to
need to
people.
do an inventory of those, and yeah, I don't know if we have time to see if they're gonna germinate. Usually seeds, like, they will store pretty
Fairly
well
good,
depending.
yeah.
So that's one thing we need to do is get an inventory of what we have, because I believe we had some materials that kind of looked like maybe they were branded for tree cap that we were giving out, so I don't, last
Yeah,
year? There was
pine tree seeds that weren't really pine trees. They were firs or something.
Right, so we need to see that, and I did receive from Alan, a list of vendors that the town has used in the past, so we'll have to take a look at that. Does anybody else want to help Injiri and I, or are you just gonna let us handle it?
I can help you before the date of it. I will not be in town on the date of it.
Okay.
I
You
can
can
help
give
with
me
the date.
jobs beforehand.
Okay, great, excellent, okay. So at some point, we will need to like fill out the, schedule, so we don't have an empty booth. So we still actually have 2 meetings between now and the festival, so that's good. Couple other just detail-y items. I have no idea how we sign up for a space at this festival. I think Shelley did that on our behalf last year with maybe,
Nora knows.
Yeah.
heard that you guys already have a table.
oh,
Great job.
okay.
Hey, way to go.
Okay, excellent, all right. Years past, Water Resources staff was so incredibly kind to bring our materials over for us. Would they be, okay, all right, would we coordinate with James?
It would be James again.
James again, and,
Everything over and help you set up.
okay, and then as far as getting access to the storage room, coordinate with Lindley? Okay, all right, excellent. All right, great.
I'll try it. I have about 10 nest boxes for birds that I made out of recycled lumber.
Excellent, bring
You're
them.
really awesome. I have one at my house.
All right.
It's really awesome.
One other suggestion.
Well,
Do
Brett,
you get birds?
Make you one.
Do you have birds in it?
No, it just looks really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, but it looks really cool.
One suggestion that John had is I think it would be good for us to get feedback from the community, and just having like a book where people can write has not been super successful. So we were thinking of maybe just doing like a half sheet of paper. I know it's paper and this is an EarthFest thing, but that, somebody could just grab it with a pen and mark and then give it back to us where we could tally it up afterwards. That might be more successful than trying to set up something digitally saying, go to this QR code, this, that, and the other. What do you all think?
You can't do like an iPad with like a survey right then and there, then they can just choose.
We could, but that would just be like one person, we'd have to have people waiting in line, and I'm also concerned if it's sunny or rainy, that might.
What was the downside with the QR code? And then you just scan it with your phone and then you can enter whatever you want.
Okay, do you know how to set up one of those?
I do, but not
Nora
really.
seems to be able to figure it out. She's got it.
You
The
can do that?
other thing that was nice, do you remember years ago when Megan had the whiteboard and people could take a photo and it said something like, I would love to see in Apex.
Right.
And then people could write what they wanted and take a picture with it.
Yeah.
It was really impactful. It was great for us because people repeated they all wanted trees, right? There were so many people that said they wanted to see more trees. And then the pictures were helpful because they posted them on social media.
Mhm.
So it was pretty cute. And then she had some inflatable things. You could take a picture holding a globe or holding a tree or something. But it was really helpful. And I think it helped us understand what Apex citizens actually want to see.
I agree.
And it was pretty simple.
It was simple. It was a pain to blow up that globe. I had to run. over
Agree.
and get my
Agree. I
hands
agree
to
with
do
that.
so.
I agree with that.
So a couple things about that. We would need somebody to take the pictures, and then we'd have to sort the pictures to see what people actually wrote. It was engaging, but if we're gonna get data out of it, we then need somebody to go back through and tally it up.
Megan was the one that handled that, the
Fair.
pictures and court
That's fair.
categorizing the data.
That's fair.
I'll say.
Nora feels like we also could just watch the photos and we could be keeping a tally live in the moment.
I mean, is there also a hashtag that we could just use it to track if they're posting on social media?
I
Then we can
suppose there
just
could be.
use that.
Yeah,
Well,
we could do that. I don't know where any of the decorations, the thing about the photo booth area was had frilly stuff.
You're right. It would be simpler, I think. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I did not see those in years past in the store.
We would do a toned down version.
but anything engaging, I think, will get more people
Mhm.
drawn to the actual.
And
If
kids
you end
like
up
to take
falling back to
pictures.
the paper thing, I can probably get a box of recycled paper, and they can write on the back side of each sheet, which would flow.
So we could go.
My wife is an
both-
accountant, and she kills trees daily.
I mean, we could go both routes. If
Yeah,
people
whatever
just
you want to do.
wanted,
I'm just
you know.
saying, if it gets too complex,
Yeah.
I mean, I think what we need to do is come up with 3 or 4 or 5 things that we think people might be interested in, and then maybe have a other category at the end, where if they don't like those ideas, they can come up with their own.
it's a good thought. Makes it easy.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
So categories that go along with the decorations as well. If they're taking pictures or just.
I don't know that they need to go along, but I'm not the right person to ask that question.
So we're gonna have 2 things. So last year we took pretty much the whole table with
Right.
the
with the-
sorting.
Yeah, with the
thing.
sorting.
And then we're also gonna have a picture booth as well.
Our booth is only so big.
I'm
Yeah.
viewing the picture booth as I think smaller than you are, but it is fine for me to be overruled. It's fine. I just was
I'm
viewing
just
it.
logistically trying to
Fair.
think through it in my head how that would work.
I think that's fair.
As I recall, our picture thing was sort of a separate area from where our regular setup was.
Because I think we had sustainability and then
Right.
that and then environmental
Yeah.
advisory. So we had a huge spread.
That's true.
So you're saying it's too large to have it in one.
I think the photo thing would require more space than what we've got, if we're gonna do anything besides that.
Because you're saying just a dry erase and maybe a backdrop.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think
I don't think it needs to be that.
just an easel
big.
with a dry erase board,
Yeah.
or even it could just be a dry erase board and you hold it up. But it's okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we limit it to something like that, I think that would work. My mind is thinking back to what we did before.
Yeah.
Even toning that down is gonna require a lot of space, but
And yeah.
We should have a practical approach, and maybe this is impractical. We already know we're going to be shorthanded, right? So
Yeah.
maybe we stick with what worked last year.
So go with the paper.
Or QR code. electronic.
Yeah, or the QR code. Yeah.
I would, yeah,
or both.
or both. Both with the same questions.
Yeah.
Hey, Suzanne, if I could chime in, I think I have two suggestions I think could work. One is you have a staff person now who has a background, as far as I heard, that's involved in outreach and education. So I think you may want to talk to her a little bit about this in the next meeting. But also, I think the most interactive way people will enjoy doing things at these festivals is the thing where they maybe get stickers and they put they're like things on the board that says like initiatives, and they put stickers because the visual of that's really nice because you can kind of see when things are piling up, and the kids like putting stickers on things, and I think it's a low tech way if it's rainy, instead of a QR code thing to be an easy way to achieve what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion. And
That's a good idea.
in the town, you have like a plotter and we could print big things.
I'm not sure how it'd be done. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think it works when I've seen it in previous festivals.
Okay.
I'm down to make that. We have a big,
We have access to a plotter.
yeah.
It's not
Okay.
in our building, but we have access to one.
I mean, it'd be something we'd have to put on some sort of a stand.
We have easels and we
Yeah.
have foam core, so you just need to provide some direction of what size, like a standard 24 by 36 inch size, and then you just have like the little small dots, like we do at public workshops. I know exactly what you're thinking about, Mr. Gant.
Cool. Okay.
I like that.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's go with that then.
Is Earthfest again? Are all the plates and utensils going to be compostable? Is that happening again?
That's a different department that's coordinating all those details, so I don't.
I was
wanna
just
say
curious.
Yeah.
Because it's helpful with the game to
Sure.
know if that is actually what's going to happen when people go to the
Yeah, right.
waste
I would
cans.
imagine that it would.
We can find out.
Do any of you all want to volunteer to make up some questions? Or to have the choices so we can,
I'll work on some questions and
Okay.
and maybe we can, if somebody else will work on some too, and we can
okay? And like,
maybe, finalize it next meeting.
that sounds good. So if you all have any suggestions, go ahead and email them to John. And then we'll talk about them next meeting.
Cool.
And then,
What day is the next meeting?
all
Can you
right,
tell us what day the next meeting is?
it's going to be March 20th. Okay, so, Injiri, do you want to help meet me maybe one day over at Public Works to help inventory what we
Sure.
have and track down all the stuff? Okay, all right, so you and I will coordinate on that. John will develop the questions, and then once we do that, we'll coordinate with the town on all the other stuff, getting it printed. All right, excellent.
And I'm looking for suggestions on questions.
Okay,
I'll compile them.
okay. All right. All right, any other thoughts from anybody about Earthfest? Okay, all right, the other thing is the suggested zoning conditions list. The list is very long, and as you saw today, there's a little bit of confusion about which section we're talking about, residential, non-residential. There are now some things on it that are taken care of by the UDO. So those need to come off. We've also been recommending some things that aren't on it, like clover lawns in residential areas. Does anybody want to join a subcommittee to start working on perhaps reformatting and maybe making suggestions about what to change on that? I'll start it.
Well, I'm willing to help.
Yeah, I'll help too.
Okay.
Well, if
We
y'all.
don't need too big of a committee.
Well, I
do
just,
not
it-
need
don't want many people.
well, we're just trying to figure out new things we want to add.
And then we gotta like
And then
identify
what
the
do we
things
need
to
to get
take
rid
off.
of?
And then, one thing that I think would be helpful is to have them uniquely numbered. So, and, you know,
For example, like the residential,
Without
and
the A's and the
non-residential, we start
B's
all
and the
over, well, we
point
start all
ones.
over with the numbering when we got a non-residential stuff too.
yeah,
And that gets.
I have ideas, because there's a lot of duplication between the residential and the non-residential. There may be a way to just mush it all into one list, but to denote when something is only applicable to residential or only applicable to non-residential. Or so. I've got some ideas, but that's something that I'm happy to coordinate with the group on. If you want to keep the list separate, we can do it that way too. Just, it might make sense to consider putting it all in one.
So John and Sean, you all will coordinate with Amanda and you can decide when you're gonna,
And Jerry said she would join too.
oh, and Jerry too, okay. All right.
Well, I don't think we need more than two
Two.
staffers.
Okay, so-
Two of us.
I mean, I'm gonna be mostly there to listen and tell you when the UDO has been fixed to
And
address
that's-
something,
that's a
or
very important.
or state law won't
a
let you
very
do it.
important job.
Yeah, so I'm not, I wouldn't technically be a member, but
No,
however
no,
many
you,
want to
no,
have.
no.
So,
Doesn't matter to me.
Wait, rock, paper, scissors, or
I'm
what?
willing to step back. I mean, I don't mind. I just don't think we need more than
Mr.
two.
Gant,
I was gonna let you finish. Suzanne, you may want to consider when you do this, even before you start, some guiding principles that the whole committee may want to think about to make things better. You know, you guys will delve into the details, but there may be things that you can discuss right now that, like shortening the list, maybe going through and getting rid of things that are already in UDO. You know, I think you may want to also think about some things are much more impactful and or expensive that I think are best taken in by the developers when it's just the only thing you mention is that one big thing. You know, a lot of times I feel like it's a lot of small things and they're happy to do it, but there may be one big thing that they'll do if they don't have to do the small stuff. And so you may want to think about a scoring system of some of sorts, or like you may want to categorize, if you do these things, you know, we consider this kind of a platinum, gold, silver. I'm not sure how you want to do it. You could do some kind of cheeky green thing, but that's another thing to think about is if there's a categorization of things that might
You could see that
lead
if
to
it's
more
like
impact.
over 100 units, you need 10 points. And if it's over 300 units, you need 25 points. And then like give the things a point system.
Potentially, I'm not sure how it'd look. You know, but I'm just thinking about how developer might do more if it's more targeted like that potentially.
It may be as simple as just recognizing the inherent, like the cost. It's fairly simple with a lot of these. I mean, not specifically, but Clover Lawn, the cost of that versus increasing your SCM to a 100-year storm,
Yeah.
right? You know, so it may be. We don't want to make it too complicated. One, that applicants aren't going to understand. Staff may, and then the board may have trouble getting just to the right numbers and getting everything to work out, and then, you know, setting a fair system for what's worth 1, what's worth 10. So, but I mean, something we can look at if someone can think of a way to make it work.
I mean, yeah, what we've got now is we've got fairly detailed list of some things that are pretty trend-setting and some that are just sort of ordinary, and they can look at that list now without any input from us whatsoever and take a look and see what they want to do. I'm not sure that
But they're picking the easy
necessarily gonna
stuff,
jump
right?
onto the
They're
jump
picking
onto
the
the
low-hanging fruit.
They're doing the easy stuff like the dog
Right.
stations. That's
Right.
much different than solar or
It is.
stormwater
It is.
or a green building. That would be
Xeriscape,
much more
I mean,
impactful.
You know, the pervious surfaces for driveways and stuff. You know, that nobody does that.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, those are my suggestions about this exercise being, you know, you could start here kind of thinking about this collectively, and then you could take kind of back and figure things out a little bit. I'm not sure, it's your board, you get to decide what you want to do. I'm just thinking about how it may, if you're unsatisfied with it and kind of the result that's happening in the end, you may want to think about that.
well, you bring up a good point. It's like, is there a way for this form maybe that we could design it that it sort of follows the process, because we don't really know what the end is. We don't really know what's getting implemented because there's no feedback loop to this.
I believe that's where you should start probably, is looking kind of, having staff maybe, if it's not too much work, to kind of collectively look at the last, 6 months of rezonings that have gotten approved and see what's in those versus what you recommended. And
But that would be helpful to know before we started.
right.
We can pull those pages, like extract those pages from the town council staff reports, because
Yeah.
what those show is what the EAB recommended
Right.
in a table along with what the applicant agreed to.
Oh.
Now, there's a rare case where the applicant might add something at the meeting, so it wouldn't be reflected in that table, but it's very rare, so I don't think it would I don't think it's gonna be meaningful if you're missing that information. That's something we talked about internally not that long ago, so, that's something that we can work on.
I think we would love very much to see that.
And now that we have a
I
staff
guess
person.
Yeah.
the feedback on whether, you know, that was suitable for the town council too. I mean, did they buy into all those recommendations or, you know, I mean, they've got competing goals.
I can-
Affordable housing and us don't always have the same
I can chime in.
goals.
What I observed, and I'm just one of the five that vote on it. Well, you see what they kind of offer. Those are always in what's in the final. Some things are added. I guess solar is one thing, but there are other things that are added. Those I would say. Okay. Yeah. So the council has to consider a lot of things, right? You know, this environmental is one. There's the need for housing in the town. There's the need for affordable housing in town. There is the infrastructure that these developments put in, which varies depending on kind of how they're arranged. Things like greenways that are included in all these things. So I would say the ones that are doing affordable housing or are putting a lot of infrastructure, roads or sidewalks or traffic lights or whatever, they are typically not doing the solar or some of the bigger asks of this committee. You know, the leverage we have a yes or no. That's all our only leverage. We can ask for things. Sometimes when the project that maybe is kind of a marginal one, in our opinion, is not that much benefit the town compared to other ones, I think we do say, well, why didn't you guys do this environmental thing? That's one thing you could do at least. You know, maybe you're not going to put in sidewalks or roads because it's not appropriate or it's too small. But these things, why you didn't turning those down? And they often will add those in sometimes at the meeting. And that's a really nice way that you guys have looked at, you know, you guys are experts. You guys have looked at this thing kind of from independent of infrastructure and housing, affordable housing, and all that, and added these things that you think are important. I think site-specific ones are of even more value a lot of times. And Suzanne, you've kind of been pointing out I think the most of anybody on the board, but all you guys kind of have touched on, like certain ones that are near Jordan Lake or near riparian buffers or near other natural areas maybe are different than ones that are infill sites that are near, you know, single-family home neighborhood or townhome neighborhood. So that's why project by project, sometimes I think things would benefit from more or fewer asks of you guys, and that's a little hard to know, I guess, because you're not seeing the end result a lot of times, and you're seeing it often at the beginning of the process too. And I think we might be addressing that timing potentially with Alan and the.
We already did that. So
we already did
it
that.
used to be before the application was submitted that they came to the EAB, and now they're coming after the application.
Oh, these have the ones you saw today have already been changed from that process, or they're getting ready to be.
They've already been submitted. They've already been through at least one round of staff.
Okay. Oh, that change is already made. Okay, I think that's a good change because it's a little better defined what you're seeing now. Maybe that's helped with you guys in your review.
It is, because it gives us an idea of what they're trying to do and how we could maybe
And what the
structure our
town
recommendations.
staff feedback is. Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of my thoughts. I think I've been disappointed a little bit that some of the green building things, you know, certifications are at least meeting those things. That's been pretty rare, and I think that's one that I love that to be recommended more. And like with apartments, you can do that easier, I think, than you can with townhomes, and you know, maybe the reverse with like solar, where the single family homes are the ones that aren't going to do any green building things, but maybe more likely if it's going to benefit the homeowner, especially if they have a bigger home lots.
Don't the developers kind of push back on getting the green certification because it costs them a lot to actually go through the process?
That's what I've heard. I don't know the details about how much it costs. I think something about if you added some flexibility about, you know, meeting the certifications, if not necessarily obtaining those certifications, might be a thing and that might be hard to kind of put into a condition. But that might be something if it's just if they're going to be doing all this stuff. The EPA building where I work and you work, was one of the models for the green building certification, the LEED certification. Our building is not LEED certified because it was done kind of before that, but it was kind of a test bed. But a lot of the stuff they can do, I think, on those lists of things, and just avoid doing the, whatever, $100,000. I'm not sure how much it costs to get the certification, but that requires somebody coming and checking it. But they do this stuff, the environmental benefits the same as if they had gotten it. Maybe there's some symbology of having a green building in Apex. That'd be kind of something we could probably put on our website and be proud of, that you wouldn't have that necessarily if you didn't go through the whole process. But those are some of my thoughts. But I'll leave it back to you guys now for that.
The way around the green building requirement, could Apex have some sort of a green building subset of that? Basically, take those things off, but they don't have to go through it, but they check it off. Apex says, okay, it's our Apex green building.
What do you think, Amanda?
It's not as good.
I can't speak to that without knowing what would be involved in that.
Yeah.
I think
It'd be something to flesh out.
that's something that probably the planning committee, Terry and I, can maybe ask you guys to take a look at. At least, are there any cities in North Carolina that have something like that? That could be something that maybe is possible to know.
Yeah, we'd have to research.
Well, it's easier when somebody's already done it to kind of just copy them.
Yes.
And there's a lot bigger cities in Apex that presumably have thought about this before as well.
So if anybody has, Asheville has.
That'll be an interesting thing to find out. I'm curious about that too. Okay, so we have a lot to consider with this list. So who is the subcommittee exactly? Let's nail that down. Sean and Jerry, did you?
I can help, I guess, yeah.
Okay, I'll let y'all.
Keep me in line. I'll be like John, I can help probably.
Okay,
It's
well,
not
we
my
can't
fault.
do too many.
We're getting close to a
Yeah,
quorum.
we're getting close to a quorum.
Well, why don't you,
Okay.
Bill, why don't you help them with it?
No, I was gonna let you, John. Okay, I'll try. I'll
We're
get
trying
it.
to gift, yeah.
So
All
one,
right.
so one more thing too. This is my kind of personal preference. I think a much shorter list, and you maybe cluster things together or categorize things together. A list that can be on 1 or 2 pages. I'm not sure how long the list is right now, but I think that would help. You could maybe say stuff like, if it's about the dog waste, that maybe that can go together with other stuff that they often do. Maybe that's like kind of like, water quality, activity improvements. Maybe I'm not sure, but like I think something shorter and sweeter would maybe get the developers more likely to do it potentially too, because they're like, oh, this is not just this giant list of everything that in the world. But
Yeah, that was.
I mean, my opinion, but that might be a better outcome as well to try to.
Have there been
Cool.
any complaints from developers, or have they provided suggestions about anything?
I haven't heard anything, but often they just don't fill it out.
Like tonight, we had,
Yeah, today we only had it from 1 of 3.
right.
Yeah, you might get
It'd
better.
be nice to know like what their feeling is.
Yeah, you
on
might.
it, or
I haven't talked to them
why.
about this particular issue. I just think that you get more likely to, if it's a little easier to fill out,
Right.
you might get more compliance.
And I think one thing too about this list is some things are duplicated because it is broken up into residential and not residential. And there's a lot of, with some of them, like explanation of the intention and how to apply. And that could almost be maybe as like a final, like notes or appendix type thing, if that's necessary to help planning or whoever interpret what the zoning condition should be or what the intention is. So yeah, I'm hoping it just very easily can be collapsed shorter, but I do agree shorter is probably going to be better. Yeah. All right. So I'll let y'all decide on when the best time to meet is, and at the next meeting, perhaps you can report back on any progress. Sound good? All right. That brings us to the end of our agenda.
Suzanne, I'm sorry, I
Sure,
forgot to mention one thing.
absolutely.
If there's not necessarily a scoring system with this, you may want to consider listing things in cost order. That way, you see they're not even going through the top 10. They're just immediately jumping to the easier ones, and that might be a way of you could list it in a way maybe that is based on impact or based on cost. I'm not sure how you want to do it, but like so it's obvious that they're skipping a lot to them and to you
Yeah,
if they are going to skip.
yeah, that's a very good suggestion.
We did this with the planting thing where we put the native ones just at the beginning, I think, and that was, I think, really clever because that meant that if they're kind of just being lazy, just picking something, they'll pick the best ones that we think are important for the environment. They're listed at the very beginning of that document. I thought that was clever, and I think you could use something similar here with environmental impact.
And I agree with you on cost, to show a unit cost of some sort so that they know. Because frankly, from my solar business side, a lot of them don't even know what it's gonna cost, and they're gonna say no right away. And same with stormwater ponds.
So are you saying like a dollar value or just like a high, medium, low?
No, we can't include dollar
Yeah.
values.
You
But I
can't-
think it could be an order. Like
could
there
be
could be some sort of order, or
relative
there could be
order.
like minimum.
Yeah.
You know, there could be like 1-star conditions and
Oh,
2-star
like-
conditions and
Yeah.
3-star conditions.
That's true, it could be, yeah.
I mean, that would be a way to differentiate what we would like to see.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and then if
Yeah.
someone comes in wanting to build right next to Jordan Lake, as some people do, then we need 4-star conditions,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if they want to do infill somewhere, then maybe it's different.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how you would interact with the people, and like if you see them skipping, let's say you categorize it that way with stars, and maybe you list the high, like let's say there are three categories of stars, 1 and 2 and 3-star category, like things they could do. You would list the 3 ones, which are the bigger ones first. You could tell them, hey, look, we had this list. We've seen it. You skipped all these 3-star things. Why? And if they have a good explanation, then you say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But if it's kind of like, well, we don't know, or it costs too much, we're not sure about how the numbers work out, you could be like, well, that's the council, yours and the council's, the planning board's decision to decide that if it's worth that or not. We think, this really impactful thing is important at this site. That's like that. It may help you guys too, as well as them.
I agree. Is there any way to make, once we redesign it and get it in a better format, make it sort of a requirement of the package? So when we get here, we're seeing that they have filled it out and we know they're thinking.
I mean, we can require it, we do, it's part of the application, but if they choose not to check anything before they meet with you, then that's the applicant's prerogative.
Okay. So
We can't compel them, you have to pick
No,
three
no,
things,
just to like fill out the form, like.
Because
to
there is
say-
a choice for no, and there's also a choice for not applicable, right?
I don't understand why we let them even come to the meeting without filling the thing out. I mean, if they didn't fill out the rest of the application for rezoning, you wouldn't do anything. You'd say, all right, fill out the thing and come back.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways to improve this form. I think if they don't check any boxes, then they're not offering anything. It's the same as no, right? So really all we need is a box for yes. Because if they don't include anything, then and that's something we can talk about on the committee, but we can't make them do anything other than submit the form. We can't make them say,
Right, I got you.
propose a minimum number.
Right.
Yeah, well, they could. I don't even think they all have the form in there.
It's part of the rezoning application.
Part of the package.
All right.
It's included in the application.
Yeah, just sometimes it's blank.
Okay.
But a simpler, shorter one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be easier. Yeah.
Would be more egregious to not have filled out at all, or not even looked at it. It's like, oh, it's 2 pages. You could do that in 5 minutes. You could look at these things. Like, come on, you can say that to them and potentially get a better result in your interactions if they are kind of feeling like they should have been doing better beforehand.
And like the first rezoning tonight, they didn't know. They never do the rezoning process. And so with their initial application, they didn't submit the form, but staff did talk with them about potential suggestions, and they added one, and it's included in their rezoning application. It just wasn't on the form.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. Great.
But I mean, the first step is to get the thing, the form with the ones crossed out that are already taken care of.
Okay, that's easy.
So if you can get us that, then.
Yeah, when we meet, I'll have that ready for you.
Oh, okay.
Has there already been a set timeline when we need to complete this exercise?
No. we can set that.
I know the last time, it took us a while.
It did.
This should go smoother, though. You know, we've worked through the wording. You know, last time we had to work on, legally enforceable zoning condition wording. So we don't have to do that this time unless you have new conditions.
Right, right.
I would think by like May, maybe. Okay. Seem reasonable?
Why not?
Okay.
I'm just gonna throw it in Chat GPT and say,
Yeah.
fix this for me.
All right. So anything further? Good to go. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will so move.
Okay. Second.
Second.
All right, Sean. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight.